Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. My name is Sachitanand Das, and I would like to today share some thoughts on vegetarianism. A lot of people today are turning towards a vegetarian diet, especially people who are very health conscious, and that is a good reason to be vegetarian. But somebody who is also serious about their spiritual life, vegetarianism is a very, very important component. Why is vegetarianism an important component? Because according to the Vedic scriptures, Veda means knowledge, and there is many types of knowledge. As we can see in schools and universities, they teach you different subjects. As an example, somebody wants to excel in mathematics, they take that course, or different sciences, biology, physics, chemistry, IT, and then there are so many other sub-subjects in that particular category. So if you want to become an expert in a particular subject, then you have to take education in that particular subject under a bona fide professor or a teacher. So those who are serious about becoming spiritual, then they have to follow the instructions of spiritual masters, or those who are well versed in that subject, which we call, in Sanskrit, it's called Vigyan. This is a very common word in many Indian languages, because a lot of the actually Sanskrit is the mother of Indian languages. And the word Vigyan means, it's a combination of two words, Vishesh Gyan iti Vigyan. Vishesh means special knowledge. And what is special knowledge? Special knowledge is basically that takes us from beyond this material world or this material science into spiritual science. And in order to understand spiritual science, there are some requirements or prerequisites. Just like when we are doing a particular course in a particular subject, the college or the university recommends prerequisites. And these prerequisites are extremely important for the student to excel or to advance. So similarly, if one wants to be spiritual and one wants to understand spiritual science, then one has to follow certain do's and don'ts, or a prescription as set by the professors or the experts in spiritual knowledge or spiritual science. And our Vedas, a part of the Vedas, the Mahabharata states that striyam dutam panam shunam yatra adharma chaturvida. One should refrain from any kind of illicit sex. One should refrain from meat eating, meaning one has to be vegetarian. And one has to refrain from gambling, and one has to refrain from intoxication. Yatra adharma chaturvida. These four: striyam, illicit sex; panam, intoxication; shunam, meat eating; and dyutam, gambling. Yatra, these adharma chaturvida. They are adharmas, against the principles of religiosity or against the principles of spiritual understanding. It is an impediment if one does these. Just like in life, a practical example would be that when we, let's say, buy a very nice, modern, brand new, latest model TV, and that TV has got all the gadgets in it, and when you come home and you plug it in, you may notice that the picture is very grainy. Why so? Because you may have not connected the antenna or the cable that goes behind the TV. Now once you do that, You'll get a nice, crisp, clear picture. Now, why do we get this crisp, clear picture? There are two reasons for that, or there are two essential components. One, the TV transmitter has to be perfect and it should be transmitting those waves. And secondly, on your end, meaning your TV, has to receive it very nicely with their antenna perked up without any kind of disruption or any kind of disturbance. So when that happens, these two conditions are fulfilled, you get a nice, clear picture. Similarly, if we want to understand a higher science or Vigyan, then these conditions are also there. Sometimes we do meet very, very great personalities. We hear them speak. Some of us have been in the movement and in the spiritual movement for many, many years, and we hear, but sometimes we see that we are stagnant. Why is that? It is because our antennas are blocked. Our antenna is blocked with a barrier, and those barriers are the anarthas. Anarthas meaning when we are not supposed to do certain things, what we are creating is we are creating a blockage. It's just like not connecting an antenna to your TV. And also, on the other hand, if the transmitter is not perfect, then no matter how well your antenna is perked up, you will still find a fuzzy picture. The antenna meaning the source of the transmission. And that could also mean that sometimes we are not fortunate enough, a lot of people in this world are not fortunate enough to hear from the perfect source. So they will be misguided. The Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the essence of Vedic literatures, it states the symptoms of this Kali Yuga. Kali means age of quarrel. And in this Yuga, or in this time period, it is stated that the life is diminished. Prayana alpa ayushya sabhya, and people are manda sumanda matayo manda bhagya hi upadritaha. People are lazy, their intelligence is not so great, and above all, and not only that, they are misguided. So if they are misguided, meaning that when they hear from the wrong sources about spirituality, then obviously they will not be receiving that vibration. And it's very important to hear from the right source. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who appeared about 500 years ago, who is a non-different from Sri Sri Radha and Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, he states that if you want to listen to the scripture, or if you want to listen to some spiritual topics, hear it from a Bhagavad. Bhagavad Shuno, Bhagavad Sthane. It's like, yes, if you want to learn chemistry, maybe somebody who has learned chemistry in high school, that person may be a carpenter. But do you really want to study chemistry from a carpenter? He may have some knowledge. Rather, you would study chemistry from a chemistry professor. So similarly, in order to understand spirituality, we have to understand from those who are highly realized and those who follow and those whose transmission tower is perfect. And once you receive that wave, that frequency, then we have to be ready to receive it. And that readiness, meaning there should be no barriers. And one of the most important factor, or one of the greatest barriers about not advancing or understanding spiritual topics, or not even interested, people may not be even interested in spiritual topics, is because of these barriers. And one of the major hurdles of the barrier is when people are eating meat. Meat should not be consumed. Somebody may say, why? And I will obviously try my best to demonstrate and explain based on what I have heard from the perfect sources, including the scriptures as explained by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, our founder Acharya at the International Society of Krishna Consciousness, and his followers. It is said that in the Vedas, everything that is there in this material world comprises of these three modes of material nature. If you see material nature, it can be divided into these three categories: the mode of ignorance, the mode of passion, and the mode of goodness. Now, Everything that we see here in this material world is either a permutation combination of these three modes, namely tamo, rajas, and satogun. Now, animals are basically predominantly in tamogun. Now, what does tamogun mean? Tamo means darkness or deep ignorance. And when one associates with such darkness, one will get that kind of propensities. In tamogun, the examples could be laziness, dirty habits, unclean, etc. So, in order to understand spiritual topics, one has to go beyond the tamogun or the mode of ignorance. One has to go beyond even the mode of passion or the rajas. One has to even go beyond the mode of goodness and has to be situated in Shuddha Sattvam or pure goodness. But in order to come to that stage, one has to slowly and eventually transcend the first hurdle, which is tamogun or the mode of ignorance. Now, why was meat eating considered mode of ignorance? Let's very carefully analyze this. There are two classes of animals. One, as we see in the English language, there are two classifications are herbivores, and the second one is carnivores. Carne is a Latin term for meat. So one who eats meat, they are known as carnivores. And the second class of entities that eat are herbivores. And herbivores basically indicates that they're eating herbs or vegetation. And they do not partake in any kind of meat eating. Now, one may say that, okay, fine, we've understood that this is the two classifications. So where do human beings stand? Now, first of all, we have to understand that the scriptures say that athato brahma jigyasa. It's the one of the sutras, I believe it's the second sutra in the Vedanta Sutra. Vedanta means Veda plus Anta, the conclusion of the Vedas. So Vyasadeva, the author of the Vedas, has very nicely summarized the conclusion in Vedanta Sutra. Sutras are little acronyms. And in that it says Athato Brahma Jigyasa. It's meaning, therefore one must inquire. So why should we inquire? Therefore means what? Because we have got a human form of body, a human form of life, we must inquire. And what must we inquire about? Brahma Jigyasa. Brahma Jigyasa means spiritual knowledge. We are capable of, human form is extremely conducive and capable of understanding Vigyan or higher science. Whereas animals are not that conducive, they're not capable because of their level of consciousness. Out of 8,400,000 species of life, it is very rare to get a human birth. And if we get a human birth, and if we just remain animals or animalistic, then we have wasted our human birth. And it is also said in the scriptures that ahar nidra bhai maithunam chat etad naranam pashubi samana dharmena adhika vishesho dharma vihina pashubi samana. Eating, sleeping, mating and defending are the four common things that are in man and animal. But what is the extra faculty that a human being has, that man has, that the animals don't have? That faculty is basically dharma or spirituality. Pretty strong words. Vyasadeva says, dharma vihina pashubi samana. And if we do not cultivate religiosity because we have that faculty, then we are as good as animals. So meat eating basically will lead to deep ignorance. If we analyze, for example, an animal, any given animal, let's say if it's a cat or a dog or a tiger or a lion, etc., they are extremely, first of all, they are naked. They do not have any kind of shame, no distinction. Wherever they go, they are just there in their body without any kind of clothing. This may sound very weird, but it is a fact, it's a truth, right? That is a sign of ignorance because they don't know anything better. Now, when they eat, if you notice, the carnivores or the animals that are eating meat, they are naturally equipped with, by nature, with that kind of particular body. Carnivores do not need to use a fork and knife in order to cut their meat on the plate. They are naturally equipped. For example, a bear or a tiger or a wolf, they are naturally equipped with claws and sharp teeth. Most of, actually all their teeth are sharp canines. And these canines basically are used to bite into meat, tear it apart, and that is kind of the same function as what a human being, so-called sophisticated human being, would use a fork and a knife, a steak knife or whatever, to cut meat on that is served on their table. Now, if we if you go into the further physiology of the animal, the carnivores have, like I mentioned, canines. So they do not, when they immediately tear open, they do not need to even cook meat. Like when they cut over, if they eat it right away. If a human being tries to eat meat, raw meat, they are certainly calling for a heavy sickness or even death. So it is an artificial imposition on the human body when one actually cooks meat, and this is basically done for the senses, for just to satisfy the tongue. Actually, the human body, nature has gifted us with maybe about, I think, 4 canines and about 28 molars. So what happens is so it shows that the structure of the body is meant to eat vegetation, fruits and vegetables, etc. Even our digestive system, when you put something like a piece of roti or a bread in our mouth, digestion begins. The saliva that is there is mild enough to turn these products into glucose. And the teeth that are meant for chewing. There are about 4 canines. Obviously, nature has equipped us to bite into fruits and nuts, but most of it is molars. So the herbivores or the vegetarian entities, like even cows or horses, if you examine their mouth, they have all molars. They do not have any canines in their mouth. Once the digestion process begins in the mouth, there's mild acid or saliva, and then when we take it to our digestive tract, usually it is said that the herbivores' digestive tract is about 32 times the length of their body. So our digestive tract, supposing if somebody is about 6 feet tall, then the digestive tract is somewhere around 190 feet. And that's what, and basically, if you compare on the other hand, the carnivore or the meat-eating animal, their digestive tract is only about 3 times the length of their body. Plus, they have heavy acidic content or bile in their body that helps digest the raw meat. If you have probably taken your children to the zoo, or if you have any memories when you went to the zoo, you would find a certain stench, even though the zookeepers have done a good job in keeping the cage clean. But if you are, when you approach a carnivore like a tiger's cage or a bear's cage, there is a certain heavy stench, and there's also certain drooling. And that is because of the heavy acidic content that is there in that animal's body that will immediately digest the raw meat. The process would begin. Whereas for the human being, we would have to cook it well enough in order to digest it. So therefore, our nature has also given us a body that we should use it for a particular purpose. And vegetarianism actually contains all these properties that are sattvic. Animals basically, when you see they sleep anywhere, even where they urinate or where they pass stool, they will sleep there. They do not have any distinction while having sex. They will even have sex with their own progenies. Right? And they will also eat anything. Like a lot of animals, they even eat rejected stuff like stool, like pigs, etc. They actually take a lot of delight in having trash. Like, so the point being here that when we consume the dead animals, we are actually associating with such qualities. That is why, without any offense to anybody, but it has been noticed, statistics speaks, that if one is a voracious meat eater, that person has animalistic propensities. Especially in the West, we see that the lot of people, they are cheating on their wives, just like they have free sex with anybody and anywhere, and every day they are looking for more and more sex, just like animals are constantly looking to have more and more sex. Animalistic propensities they have. So these are the qualities that the sattvic qualities are not there. They're actually basically associating with tamasic, or qualities that lead you to deep ignorance. A lot of people are dirty, unclean. So it is said, there's a nice saying in Hindi, for those who understand Hindi, Jaisa sang aisa rang. Whatever you associate, you are what you eat, as they say in English. So when we partake in such activities, then definitely it will not help us. So vegetarianism is the foundation to understand higher spiritual subjects. Otherwise, our antenna will be blocked with a barrier. And one should be very careful of what intake we take, of who we associate. And finally, if we analyze animals, people who eat meat, what happens basically, it is, somebody has very nicely put it, one of the sadhus put it, basically you are a walking graveyard. Now, when somebody dies in your house, or when we go to a funeral home, or when somebody says, what do? Do they keep the dead body at home? Immediately they take it out, sometimes within 2 or 3 hours, or sometimes within a day or two, depending on the circumstances. But nobody keeps a dead body at home because it is dead. So how come, if we are intelligent human beings, how come we don't think about it? How come we are actually associating with dead animals and actually housing them in our body? Does that make sense? I don't think so. I think we all need to understand this, reflect upon it very nicely, and see if it makes sense. Obviously, if we reflect deeply on it, we will understand that being vegetarian is extremely important, especially if one wants to advance and take full advantage of our human body to understand the higher knowledge or higher spiritual science. Thank you very much.